I'm telling y'all, you better show up and show out with them ballots. I'm being serious now. I know I look good, but it's a serious time. I need y'all to listen. Show up and show out when it's time to vote, because it's not just about the presidential election, you guys. It's time for us to play chess, not checkers. It's about making decisions that will affect us as human beings, our careers, our next generations to come. Did you know that it is now a crime to be homeless? Pay attention. It's not a secret. Look it up. They are attacking our most vulnerable citizens. The Project 2025 plan is not a game. Look it up. They are trying to bring the draft back. Who do you think they're going to draft first? I'm not trying to scare us. I'm trying to inform us. We got 3 Supreme Court seats up, you guys. We need those seats, or we have no protection.
Blue wave, we rise to save the day. Only me, only you can let our hearts sail away on a blue wave.
Today, Anita and I welcome back to the podcast Heidi Beirich and Wendy Vi from Global Project Against Hate and Extremism at globalextremism.org, whose mission is strengthening a diverse global community committed to exposing and countering bigotry and hate. Included in their work is providing information about Project 2025, the far-right playbook for American authoritarianism. Heidi and Wendy, welcome back to TruBlu Politics.
Welcome. Oh, gosh. Thanks for having us. So glad to be here.
So the clip that we played, of course, was Taraji P. Henson at the BET Awards sounding the alarm about Project 2025. And it seems like that was kind of a turning point.
Yeah, it did seem like that. I was hearing a little bit, like more in the, like I listened to Jasmine Crockett, first of all, said something about it during a hearing, but there wasn't, now it's just everywhere. Everybody's talking about it. It was the most Googled thing just a couple months ago. It's been like that since then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just want to express how appreciative I am for your newsletter and updates regarding Project 2025. And I know that just yesterday you guys had a workshop speaking about the impact that Project 2025 will have on women, girls, and students. Can you guys speak a little bit about your workshop?
Well, let me just say, I have to thank Ms. Henson, because that was amazing. And just, I think you were saying that on Google, I think searches for Project 2025 were outpacing Taylor Swift for a little bit there.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember. Yeah, it was Taylor Swift. It was the number one thing that people were Googling. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, thank God, because we really need to get the word out there. Well, I think, Wendy, you should talk about the webinar from yesterday. Wendy was really the star yesterday of the event.
Well, I had some of the details, but I also, I mean, if I could, I would give anything to be able to personally thank Ms. Henson, because I do think that she brought it to the attention of people in a way that that applied to everybody, in a way that
it wasn't a politician. It was
right.
Yeah.
And it was a turning point. And I don't know if she knows that or not, but I'd like to tell her. But anyway, yesterday we did do a webinar and we focused on women and children. We did one before that focused on the impact of the LGBTQ community. Obviously, there is overlap in every part of Project 2025, in different communities. But the main point that we wanted to try to get across was that Project 2025 agenda is in itself a sort of a mean-spirited document, meaning that when you take it as a whole, it is very clear that they are targeting women, people of color, immigrants.
Yep.
And that doesn't seem like such a surprise, except for when you read it as a whole, it's mean. I mean, I don't know. I don't have another
It's
word.
white. It's white nationalism is what it is, or Christian nationalism.
Well, 100%. Yes.
Yeah. I saw the training videos and they're so creepy. Have you watched those
We watched
on
some of them.
ProPublica?
Yes.
They're just creepy. They're like, talking about how to hide what they're doing. Teaching people don't write anything down. Of course, they wrote it all down and they made videos, a training video, but it's just about how they're going to take over the federal government, and how to basically hide it. That was mostly what they were talking about, was how to get these things done without leaving a trail.
Yeah, they do. They work. The manifest. I mean, excuse me. The mandate is very public. Obviously, it's been written, but their actual activities they don't talk so much about. Like, who are they talking to about this or that? Who's giving them money? Who are they talking to overseas? I mean, all of that is kind of secret. But you're right in that it is Christian nationalism. We believe is inherently white nationalist, and the idea is, for this particular webinar that we did yesterday, was to illustrate how the authors, the supporters of Project 2025, really want to create, or in their minds, recreate a society where the traditional family, meaning a married man and woman, biological male and female,
Stays set, yeah,
with children, are a nuclear family, and the mom stays home and takes care of the kids, and the kids are taught through their education is through a biblical worldview. And every single thing about the plan drives the policies towards that, whether it's the tax code, whether it's the Department of Education. It's all the entire thing is meant to drive our society to that place and emphasize the sort of what they consider to be the biblical teachings that says this is how it ought to be. How do you want to add?
Well, I just, people should take a look at it for sure. But, all the kind of public programs that help women and children, things like the child tax credit, WIC programs, Head Start programs, all these things are under threat. Education, absolutely, right? They would institute voucher programs like they already have in Alabama, where Wendy is.
They're trying to do it here. Yeah, they're trying to do it here in Texas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you basically, get state money to send your kids to, Christian nationalist schools.
Yeah.
And they want to handicap your divorce policies, right? So that women are in a more precarious position.
They want no-fault divorces, right? No-fault divorces. They don't. Yeah, that's what I. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I was going to say child support payments, right? They want to set it up so that a man who's not the custodial parent who is paying child support can on his own decide what expenses to basically delete from those child support payments because he's given a gift or he's done this or he's done that. So instead of the courts making a fair decision on financing, he'll decide. And all of this is an attempt to sort of drive women out of the workforce, back into their homes, and to have their primary role be having and raising children. This, of course, is any woman's choice on how they want to do this. But you put this together with, let's get rid of sex ed, let's get rid of mifepristone, let's get rid of abortion. All this stuff is driving women to have as a primary role
on men. Yeah, to be dependent on men.
Dependent on men and to produce children, right? Without their control, right? Without them deciding with their spouse, partner, whatever, what their family should look like. So it's real scary, and it would be so devastating for people in this country and for children. It would just be punishing.
Yeah, and also, I mean, how would families do that financially? Because the workforce, almost all women are in the workforce now. What is it? 50% of the workforce is women. I don't know how I don't know how this country wouldn't just collapse financially.
Well,
You know?
I think it's their idea to, as Heidi said, to drive women out of the workforce, but they're while it's not spelled out in Project 2025, our work studying and researching all the groups behind it, we know that their general thinking is that were women not in the workforce, then more men would have
higher
jobs,
paying
they would
jobs. Yeah.
higher paying jobs, and the children would be we would not have things like substance abuse or I mean
Childcare. Childcare.
it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. But I want to say, first of all, Heidi and I respect any choice that a person makes. There's plenty of people who want to stay home with their children, either the mom or the dad. And if you're able to do that, then that's great. But the fact of the matter is that in this country, most families are not able to do that.
Right.
They have to work to pay the bills, to pay the mortgage, or to save for a mortgage, or and how many people, one of the jobs pays for the child care, and somebody has to have that job because of the insurance. It's not a realistic approach to how people live.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it's very thought out. I mean, taking it back to a time, when men were the heads of the household, where women didn't have control over their own finances, they didn't have access to birth control, so that they could exercise some family planning and have some autonomy over their bodies. And so it really is a question of control and taking away freedoms from
women,
of us as equal citizens, right?
Because they're weak men, and some of these women are support this kind of patriarchy, and these weak men who feel like if they have to force women to stay with them. Like the no fault divorce, you can't leave. You have to, like, what was it? I can't say a politician's name, but somebody said that he doesn't think women who are abused should be able to leave their husband. So
there have been some extreme statements on the far right on that front. And of course, remember, a lot of people on the far right don't want red flag laws to apply to people who engage in, violence in the home, essentially. And so there's this weird, I mean, even putting women in the position of having to be with their abusers is seen as superior to breaking up a family. I mean, this is some crazy stuff.
That's sick. Yeah.
We're talking about rape as an pregnancy as a result of rape as an inconvenience.
Yeah. Like he's from, the person who said that is from Ohio, and a little girl, a 10-year-old girl, was raped there and remember, they denied her an abortion. She had to go to Indiana. I mean, was it just because that was inconvenient for a 10-year-old to carry a baby? It's just these men, just the kind of language they use, they're just so clueless.
Well, the sheer
callous, I think, is a word.
Callous. They are so callous. Yeah.
I mean, but the sheer fact that the debate over abortion went from, safe, legal, and rare, then to more and more restrictions, and then eventually in many states to banning it in cases of incest and rape is quite shocking to people, I think.
Yeah.
That you would go to those extremes. But that is basically the position of most of the people who are behind Project 2025.
Right.
I personally, can't say the exceptions for rape or incest. Those don't mean anything. The politicians that put them in there, they put them in there as cover. They don't mean anything. If somebody, but to even get an abortion, you would have to go to court, prove you were raped, and then they'd have to give you permission. Remember that woman here in Texas went to court. They told her, because her doctor had said to save her life or at least her health, that she needed an abortion. And when she went to court and the judge agreed with her, and then the Supreme Court said, no, in Texas, your body is not your own anymore if you're a woman.
Mm-hmm.
No. And it's not, it goes it goes so deep in that right now, certain preventive services for women are covered by Medicaid, Medicare, mandated in some insurance policies, and condoms are included in
Of
that.
course.
Well, they don't, because their argument is that is a male preventive service. So that should be completely excluded from women's preventive services. But of course, it's not just about preventing pregnancy, it's about preventing disease. But but by taking away condoms, then you're not going to have women having any kind of sex other than the kind meant to procreate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah.
I know it leaves you a little speechless, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm like,
and that's hard to do. Like Anita and I, we're not usually rendered speechless, but it's.
Well, where was it where that woman tried to? She was married, a married woman. Not that matters. Just a woman, a grown ass woman, walked into that Walgreens. Was it here in Texas or was it Florida? I get those confused. But anyway, she walked in and tried to buy condoms, and the pharmacist wouldn't sell them to her. He said, your husband has to buy these.
Yeah.
I am not kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what it's done is that's not a law, obviously.
No.
All of this talk and all of these lawsuits and this introduction of legislation that restrict women's rights, it has given people who have these very restrictive beliefs, license,
embolden them.
Yes, yeah. It's completely embolden them in a situation where you're actually being discriminatory, and it's not allowed, but they feel empowered to do it now.
So, and it reminds me a little bit about the bakers that don't want to bake the gay wedding cakes. Right. And it's kind of the same thing. It's just like, so any business like your mom and pop's pharmacy can deny selling
condoms to women,
to any woman that comes in there, and they're protected because they can, it goes against their beliefs.
It goes against their religious beliefs. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's,
which is insane.
It does. And it just goes down to controlling women. And then how do you even, like in the case of rape, where, Anita, you were saying, you have to go to court, you have to prove that you were raped, right? And we know how that usually goes historically. Women don't come forward and say that they
don't.
Raped.
And a lot of times you can't prove it.
Right, because you can't prove it. So now here you are, and you have a window of time to not only prove that you were raped, to have the courage to come forward and put yourself out there, and then the stigma attached to that and all the other things that go along with just being raped. And now you have to get a judge to sign off on it so that you can have an abortion. And this is all before 6 weeks?
Yeah.
The logistics are mind-boggling too. Like, how do you do that? How about the woman, I think she was in Ohio, that was being criminally prosecuted
for
having a miscarriage, and they were going to charge her with mishandling a corpse, and then she had to go all the way through to a grand jury only, and fine. Thank God they said, no, you don't have anything here. But the fact that all of that time, all of that money, taxpayer dollars too. They don't, where is that a part of the
conversation? Well, here in Texas, we have those bounty laws, where if you have an abortion, and if somebody assists you in any way, even knows about it, you can be sued by any party. It can be anybody. They can take you to court, and if you lose, you pay the court fees. If you don't, if you win, you still pay all the court fees.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous, right? You're going to be out of
Yeah.
pocket a ton of money for having done absolutely nothing wrong. And
Yeah,
they don't
exactly.
care. They don't
No.
care.
No.
No.
No,
And
because
just-
it's all part of this is just the price to pay to get to the place they want to be. Like we just have to like I think they see it as we just have to get through these kind of messy, chaotic times. But in the end, if we persevere, then our vision will come.
Yeah.
Will bear fruit.
Yeah, so we're kind of talking about like what the end result and all, the potential pitfalls and the logistics of this, but what are some of the modes of like what's the mechanisms, I guess is the correct word, for how to do this, how to accomplish what they want to accomplish. I know with birth control, with abortion medication, they're talking about the Comstock Act. So can you guys speak about that?
You should take the Comstock Act, Wendy. Wendy did a good rendition yesterday of the Comstock Act.
So the Comstock Act is a law that was put into place like 100 years ago, and it was primarily about sending what they described as obscene materials through the mail, but it also included any kind of material that would lead to an abortion. And so that could be, I don't know, 100 years ago what it would have looked like, but it could be literature or, ocean, I don't know. So, but over the years, the obscenity objections have sort of been, they've been addressed. So there's not as many things that would qualify as obscene under the Comstock Act. However, the part about sending any kind of a abortion medication is still there. It is still on the books right now. There are situations in certain states where it's still legal. You can have a teledoc appointment, and a doctor can prescribe you mifepristone or the combination of drugs or whatever appropriate medication is required. It can be done, and then it's mailed to you, which is how most abortions are done these days, and not in clinics, not with surgical procedures.
Right.
And so they want to stop that. So like you're going to get rid of 85% of abortions if you stop that.
Well,
right away.
It's also medical equipment that deals with abortion. So like if you live in a state where abortion is legal, they can't get the medical equipment to perform those abortions.
Right.
It's a really dangerous, thing they want to do. And they want to ban pornography. So I guess they could use the Comstock law for that too.
They could, except that it's been, the pornography has been to the Supreme Court so many times, but these guys want to take it back. They want it to go back because they equate being transgender or sex education information in schools or LGBTQ affirming content. All of that with pornography. And so if you outlaw pornography, then you're going to be outlawing aspects of those, those issues. And then it says right in Project 2025's document that if a librarian allows this material to be in the library, then they should be arrested and classified as a sex offender because they are child abuse.
That's crazy.
Well, it is, but you can see the path, right?
Oh, I see the path. My daughter's talking about going back to school to study to be a librarian. And I was just thinking about that. To be a librarian in Texas is not probably.
No, Houston. Look what they just fired a bunch of school librarians so that they could set up detention or behavior centers,
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going down the wrong path here. I mean, this really is some crazy
It's really dark. It's really dark stuff. But things are looking better. Hopefully people are getting educated about what they're trying to do. I mean, ProPublica released all those training tapes. And let me tell you, have you guys watched any of them?
Yeah,
Yes.
we wrote about one of them that had all this weird attacks on like wokeism and
And climate change.
gender. The climate change I haven't seen yet, but that and also there was a video released, undercover videos of Russell Vought.
Yes,
Who,
I heard about that. Yeah, go ahead.
this no, I was just gonna say this morning, and he says some very white nationalist type stuff about immigration, getting, I can't remember his words exactly, but like, we got to get a hold of this multicultural society. He definitely used the word multicultural. So
Yeah,
it gives you a little bit of a taste of where these people are really coming from. And also, he says we've already drawn up dozens of executive orders.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they're like ready to roll, depending on what happens in November.
Well,
they're just
one
going to do
thing
it all. Go ahead. I'm
well,
sorry.
I was going to say one thing that Heidi and I also try to stress, and this goes to what you've been saying, Anita, like in Texas, and of course I live in Alabama, and in between us is Mississippi and Louisiana, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
not a lot of places to
and
go.
then Florida, Georgia, but we try to emphasize the fact that obviously elections do matter, but the outcome of the elections is not going to get rid of the far right movement. This is
No.
their
Oh no, this is who
Project
they are.
have is
Yep.
their agenda, and they are working it from every angle. They're being very successful in our states, Anita, Texas, and Alabama.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And-
absolutely. Yeah,
And less successful in a state like California, but they're trying to push no fault divorce. So it's
Sure.
not like they're afraid to work in more progressive or liberal states, but we just want people to be aware that this stuff is happening all around us. Like
Yeah.
I have a daughter who lives in California. I have a son who lives in Texas, and we have completely different. I mean, first of all, my daughter and I have different rights, and my son
Yeah.
as well. And the conversations that we have, I mean, I can't believe I'm having these conversations at this
Yeah,
of, I mean,
in history.
in our,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean,
I have that-
should it go to the point? I mean, I am feeling very hopeful along with Anita, but should it go to the point where, God forbid, we have a right-wing extremist in the White House and they implement all of these things, then basically, so I'm in the free state of Illinois where our governor codified Roe. I mean, a lot of this stuff, despite the fact that they've been talking about states' rights, right, all along, that stuff, I mean, we will all basically have this similar lack of rights, no? I mean,
If they do
Yeah.
what they say they're going to do, they want to do it on a national basis, of course, because it's the federal
Yeah.
government. And, the Comstock law for sure would affect everyone. California, Illinois, Massachusetts, New York. I mean, places where they, where they're, women still have reproductive rights, need to understand that this is going to affect all of us.
yeah, and I agree with you because I think that it's one of those situations where, I mean, they've been playing the long game for a very long time with, like, the overturning of Roe, and it was kind of, everybody's like, oh, they'll
Mhm.
never do it. And, when we warned that with the Supreme Court, being, having 3 to 4 Supreme Court justices picked by a white Christian.
We told them, we warned everybody.
We
Hillary.
said that this is what's going to happen, right? And now, so here we are. And
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that, if this election goes our way, they're not just going to go back away. I mean, they're going to
Oh no,
continue.
they're always going to be here.
continue the work.
They were
Yeah.
always here before. They've been
Yes.
around. They wrote the first, Project 2025. I don't know what it was called then. What did they write in 1972?
72, 70, at the end of the 70s, I think it was 78,
Yeah.
they came forward with the conservative
For Ronald
mandate.
Reagan. And it was supposed to be for Ronald Reagan. And there were some things that he instituted, but now it's gone even further. And they know they've got somebody they think will actually implement these things.
Right. Yeah, because it was originally written for the next Republican president.
Well, it was basically
And-
written for Reagan, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just been such a shift in terms of the Republican Party. in the Reagan era, of course, Reagan was anti-abortion and whatnot, but he took no actions to affect that particular right. And he was more about, taxes and budget and national security and those kinds of things. And
But
this
he
is,
cozied up to the moral majority. I mean, let's
oh
face it.
yeah, for sure, because they were his voters, for sure. But they weren't the force that they are today, right? I mean, it's really all of these strands coming together under Trump, the anti-immigrant wing, the social conservatives, and being willing to actually enact things even though they are exceedingly unpopular. I mean, one other good thing in a way, about Project 2025, they wrote down their strategy. So now we got something to point to where we didn't really have that before. They were stealthy. They were in the background, playing the long game. And then the other thing is that the polling that's been done on the specific proposals in Project 2025 show that people hate it.
Oh, they hate it. I saw that. Yeah.
And that includes Republicans who don't like the proposals. So
like abortion bans. Look at it. Look at how abortion bans are not popular. I mean, every state, Kansas, Ohio, red states.
Yeah.
That are just saying, no, we don't want that.
Or the IVF kerfuffle in Alabama, where the Alabama politicians were like, we're going to, right, Wendy? We're going to reverse this. We're not going to, can't have this, even though I know IVF clinics are leaving the state and shutting down.
Well, I mean, just to add to that, Heidi. So yes, they passed there was a court case that outlawed IVF, essentially saying that the medical professionals could not operate. The Supreme Court upheld that, and then our Alabama legislature rushed to pass another law saying that the medical professionals would not be prosecuted. So there's difference between what the beliefs are, and somebody's not going to be prosecuted.
And they got blowback, but they got a lot of blowback. When they brought it up in Congress, most Republicans voted against protecting IVF. So it's very what they're doing. We can't listen to what they say. Watch what they do, as they say, because these guys, they'll get up to a microphone like Tommy Tuberville and say, oh yeah, he thinks IVF is, he supports it, and then he doesn't vote to protect it.
Yes, we keep coming back to Alabama, don't we? It's a larger point, I think, is critical. I mean, Texas is a much bigger state than Alabama and has much bigger economy and major cities that we don't have. And so I think it'll take longer. But in Alabama, the one clinic, it was up in Huntsville, that kept operating through all of that chaos around IVF. I mean, he's shutting down his clinic now. He's going up to New York because it's not just about, am I going to be prosecuted? It's the environment in which I'm trying to practice medicine.
Right.
We have
to do in Alabama already. And, in rural areas of all states are already underserved when it comes to medical attention. And
doctors are leaving.
These kinds of things are what we worry about, right?
Well, I mean, would you want to be a gynecologist in a place like Alabama or others where you could get prosecuted for not for an abortion, but for medical treatment of a woman who's having issues with pregnancy or whatever the deal is?
Whatever, exactly.
And also, what does it mean for medical training? Alabama has a great hospital system in Birmingham, but that hospital system is going to be affected by the abortion ban, and people aren't going to want to come and train. Yeah, and you won't because you're not really becoming a true women's health professional if you can't learn about abortion or anything even loosely related to that, right? You can't protect women's health. So you're not going to go to Alabama to be trained in some kind of weird thing.
No.
And you're not going to practice in those states where this is going on for fear of what could happen to you, like the IVF guy.
Right. Well, and I just think too, being pregnant in a state like Alabama or Texas or any of these, red states that have these bans, Anita, I mean, and I hope
I've talked about that.
Any private information. Yeah. I mean, having, an ectopic pregnancy, You know,
Mhm.
and so now you go and you have an ectopic pregnancy that requires emergency care. Okay. Now you go to a doctor who either is not equipped to deal with it because there's such a brain drain, or, you know, or they're afraid to do it because there's now all of a sudden you're a, you know, legal microscope and they're crawling up and looking at you and what actually happened. God forbid the woman dies because of it, you know.
Well,
I
they'll
mean, it's
yeah,
just,
that
it's
ectopic
really, yeah.
pregnancy, the
Mhm.
fact that they think ectopic pregnancies, you know,
Are
which
viable.
the only thing you can do for an ectopic pregnancy is remove it.
Yes.
And these men who are saying no, you know, I mean, I've heard them question some of these men who are like, oh no, I think, you know, it's ectopic pregnancy. They don't even know what it is.
No.
This is not viable. It's not viable, but they're still like, you know, there are no exceptions.
Yeah, I think that there's certainly those that don't even acknowledge that different kinds of medical interventions are needed. Actually, in Project 2025, they acknowledge ectopic pregnancies, but it's really pointless because you've already instilled fear in the entire medical profession.
Right.
Right.
Yep. That's the
And
bottom
so now
line.
you are
Yep.
still going to possibly lose somebody as a result of it. Additionally, you can have a person who isn't pregnant who needs some kind of procedure that resembles, you know,
Yes.
like a DNC or something. And
Exactly.
then
Hey,
they are afraid to do it, or they do all this paperwork, depending on where you are, like certifying that it wasn't an abortion, or or if they remove the HIPAA protections, which they absolutely want to do,
Right.
meaning that doctors can or
send your
medical
information.
professionals
Yeah.
can report a
Mhm.
patient to law enforcement
Mhm.
if they suspect that there has been some kind of an abortion, or you can just get a court order for somebody's medical records, which is, as bad as things are, that's still pretty hard to do, right? You have to, I mean, HIPAA is a serious
Yep.
enforced law, and it would completely bypass the HIPAA laws when it comes to a woman's health care.
Yeah. Well, and two, I know that early on, that women, young women were deleting the period tracker apps
Oh
as
yeah.
well,
In
where,
certain states, yeah,
yeah,
like Texas
where,
and
yeah, where they have essentially have your data and can,
share it.
and
Yeah.
share it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty
It is.
scary.
It really it is. It's scary.
Really scary. I like that. I like what Tim Walz said. Mind your own damn business about everything. I think that's the perfect. If people don't want to have an abortion, mind your own damn business.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be, just as a rule. Mind your own damn business.
Yeah. No, yeah, again, I think that it really just all comes down to what kind of a country do you want to live in? I want to be in a country where we are free, and it's not, their idea of freedom, is in regards to the, Second Amendment and being able to, own and operate assault weapons. It's like, okay, well, you guys have that desire to be able to, or to be able to call, gay people the F word, or, whatever. That's freedom of speech, I suppose. Hate speech is something that you want to be able to exhibit when you draw your swastikas on the side of a synagogue. But for all of us, we just want basic freedoms to be able to marry who we want to marry,
Yeah.
be who we want to be, have autonomy over our bodies, not have
Yep.
a bunch of white men legislating things that they know nothing about, and
Yeah.
just stay out of our way. It's not affecting any of those people. This episode of TruBlu Politics is brought to you by Night Sky Woodworks, featuring gorgeous products like cutting boards, cheese and charcuterie boards, and beautiful tea light holders, all finely handcrafted in their Chicago, Illinois wood shop, all of which have eye-catching designs and make the perfect complementary piece for any kitchen or living room. If you use code TruBlu, that's TRUBLU at checkout on their Etsy shop, you get 10% off any order, which is a pretty great deal if you ask me. So go check out their stock designs today and message your custom order request on their Etsy shop today by visiting etsy.com/shop/nightsky, NITESKYE Woodworks, and use TruBlu, TRUBLU at checkout for 10% off. Anita and I couldn't do this without our loyal listeners and love hearing from you, so please give us some stars and a review if you're so inclined, wherever you get this podcast. TruBlu Politics is sponsored by our wonderful TruBlu crew of listeners and our supporters on Patreon. As a small startup podcast, our Patreon members help us pay the bills to keep our podcast running and also allow us to keep investing in equipment upgrades for even better quality content in the future. When you sign up as a monthly TruBlu crew member at even just $1, you instantly unlock our private TruBlu pod chat and full episodes a day earlier than everyone else, without ads in the middle. Upwards from there, we've made even more perks available, like having your name shouted out at the end of our show, and our personal Zoom call with me and Anita to discuss ways to overthrow the GOP. If you would like to become a Patreon subscriber at any level, go to patreon.com/TRUBLU Politics Podcast.
Actually, Project 2025 is all about control.
Right.
So they don't believe in freedom at all.
For a Christian nationalist, of course it's not about those kinds of freedoms, right? Because they have an agenda that's, biblically based, their interpretation of the religion and whatnot. And that's the prime thing they want to achieve. They don't want to maximize our freedoms and liberties. They want to impose their worldview on all of us.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it's never going to be about freedom or liberty. It's the exact opposite.
Right.
And guns may fit as a freedom within their framework, but certainly women's bodily autonomy does not, or families that don't fit this model that they have in mind. None of that stuff is in line with what they want this country to be. And I also have to say, it's not even aligned with the Constitution, right? I mean, you can't claim to believe in the Constitution and then be like our Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and say everything I believe is in the Bible. Because what about, separation of church and state?
Exactly.
They don't care.
What about not preferencing one religion over another? Which is exactly what this is. One thing I was going to add to that is all of the regulation that they want to impose on women and children. They want to take away all regulation from giant corporations, especially those.
Yep. And big tax cuts for them too.
They want tax cuts gone. They want agencies gone. They want they want rules to be dismissed because they're what they say is that the government shouldn't interfere with the free market, and therefore we should get rid of all of these rules. And they were only put in place because you had some brainwashed woke people in the government or servants, and so the corporations can make their own decisions and we should trust them.
Right. And so, and of course, part of the Project 2025 agenda is to take away the independence of all of the government agencies. And so you, in your workshop, were speaking about the impact on students. And so one of those agencies that will go away is the Department of Education. So I don't know if you want to speak to that at all. And how that will, very much.
Yeah, well, they want to get rid of the Department of Education, and it goes back to this idea that our current government, or the state of our government right now, is filled with people who are woke. They're all DEI hires. They are racist because they
against white people.
They're against white people, and that they are perpetuating racism by suggesting that people of color should have equity programs. I mean, it just goes, I mean, so it kind of goes back to the core of like who they want the society to be. And they do not want it to be any of those things. But the Department of Education is, in their view, especially tainted by all of this. And so, and it is poorly run. This is their view, poorly run. It makes bad rules regarding things like LGBTQ students.
Yep.
And the civil rights aspects of education in the United States, that should all be gone. And
what they teach, they want them teaching.
Critical race theory is noxious. That is their word. And it is racist. Which is not taught in middle school, by the way.
Right.
But what was that quote in Project 2025 about creating like little communist? We had it yesterday.
Oh my God!
It was it's a direct quote from their document about how the schools are basically pumping out little communist comrades or something along those lines. And it gets worse than that. They want to get rid of like funding for teachers. Thousands of teachers would lose their jobs. They would definitely
180,000 to be.
Okay, well, there we go.
Well, it would destroy they want to destroy the public school system is what they want to do because they don't believe in it. They want only the people that deserve an education, that have the money to pay for private school or religious school or something like that. They don't really they've never believed in public education.
That's right. That's exactly right. They want to gut it. And I have to say some of the language in that mandate for leadership on this front is really quite crazy. I mean, it's real over the top. And sometimes when I look at that over the top language that they use, comparing, librarians should be arrested, trans folks are the same as pornography. I kind of got to wonder what world these people are living in. Because I think for most folks, they hear that kind of stuff and they're thinking, what? Like, and you bring it up and you almost are like, I hope you believe me because I know this sounds hyperbolic and crazy. Take a read. Don't take my word for it.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I think you're right.
Every conversation I have with family and friends, I'll be telling them about Project 2025 and what they want to do. And all of a sudden I'll hear myself and I'm like, I know it sounds crazy. And I always say that.
You always have to preface it with that. Yeah.
I know it sounds crazy, but I'm telling you right now, I will send you the link and you can read it for yourself. And let me just say this little plug for you guys, the primer that you put out for what they want to do in the first 180 days. Thank you so much because I have been able to share that with colleagues, with friends, with family. And it is such a nice little, just a one-page tool. And that alone, gets people's attention, I think, just being able to have that something that is shareable like that.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I think you're right, though, that they live in their own little worlds where they think they're normal because they're talking to people just like them who are just a little bit weird. I think that's the word they're using now. They are weird. They're all a bunch of weirdos. And they talk about things like, being afraid their daughter can't go into a bathroom because of, transgenders, transgender girls.
It really does say more about them than it does about us.
Yeah. Yes. It says a lot of.
Everything that they do is about projection. It's like you guys are the creepy weirdos that,
think about these things.
Think about all these things and think that everybody else is doing them. But we're all like, what are they talking about?
They're weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they straight up say, and they use the word left, but that the left is deviant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they don't like being called weird because now we've always been the ones that are supposed to be weird, right? And they're the normal people. They're supposed to be the normal people, but they're not normal. They're weird. They're acting. Nope, like you said, nobody's talking about these things.
Well, I mean, I think another thing that we try to that we try to get people to understand is that when we're talking about the groups behind Project 2025, they are super powerful and they are super rich. They have lots and lots of money. but they do not represent even the majority of conservatives.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but because of the way that they have been working for decades, because of the way, like congressional districts are drawn, because of the way that the power they've been able to, or the influence they've been able to gain in various red states.
The Senate.
And in the Senate, their influence is, it's
overrepresented.
exactly. They are way overrepresented in our society. And so it seems like, well, we're calling them weird. Well, they are lunatics, unhinged, whatever, but they have the power.
Mhm.
And so it is
Yes.
not hyperbolic or hysterical to say we have to pay attention to this.
Yes.
Oh,
And
absolutely. But go ahead. You know what? I knew that because, like, in Mississippi, like 10 years ago, maybe longer, they tried to pass this personhood bill, which said, life begins at conception. And it failed miserably in Mississippi. These people keep voting for these things and they think that their constituents want, like what happened in Alabama with IVF. And then there's a revolt. It happened here in Texas when they try to pass vouchers. And these Republicans who represent rural areas were like, "Oh, no way," because that would destroy the public schools in those areas.
Mhm.
So yeah, they are totally out of touch. And we do. You're right. We have to pay attention to them because they are overrepresented as far as our institutions go and in power.
Yeah, and luckily they have a website. Luckily they have a 920-page document. Luckily they have drop downs for training.
Yeah,
And they have videos of the trainings and things
they're
like
not too
that.
smart.
So,
Yeah,
yeah. So it's yeah, they're just
I don't know.
they wrote it all
away.
down. Yeah,
I think that they had been having so many wins over the last few years that they got overconfident and
they
arrogant
got cocky. Yep.
and put this out there because they were confusing their own thinking with the thinking of the country.
Mhm.
But again, because of the wins they've had, you can see how they came to that conclusion. But
Mhm.
fortunately, there is blowback on it, and we
Sure.
just keep pushing.
Calling them weird, I'm telling you, they think they are the normal ones. The
Mhm.
people that think this way think they are normal. And when you call them weird,
Mhm.
it really bothers them because they are the weirdos. They are out of touch. They're out of, they like to paint the left as just a bunch of radical hippies, right? Bunch of weirdos, like you said, deviants.
Mhm.
But
Well, and the
Go ahead.
well, and I think the timeliness too, luckily for us, with the Supreme Court and their actions of late with the Chevron decision
Yeah.
and overturning Roe v. Wade. Now it's kind of like it gives us something very concrete. In addition to the fact that they put up a website and a document and all the rest of it, it also says, hey, this is your little sampler. And so now, these red states are getting this is your little,
You want to turn the whole United States into
fascist.
Texas?
Yeah, this is your little fascist cheese flight. You can have a
Yeah.
sampler and like taste it and see how you feel about it. And then when we go into, the next election, you can make a decision here. Did you like that? Did you like that little sampler that we brought out for you? No, not so much. So let's do something about it. And I really am encouraged by how many Republicans are, conservatives. Like you said, there's a segment of the conservative population in this country that are not down with this.
There's a
So-
lot of pro-choice Republican women or conservative women.
Yes. And again, here's a little sample for you. This is what they meant. Remember when you thought, oh yeah, no, they'll never. I like the fiscal conservatism. I like, I want to be
I'm socially liberal, but I'm fiscally conservative.
Exactly. But they're never going to overturn Roe. And now here we
No.
are. And so I feel like that's a little bit of a wake-up call. And it's like,
Yep.
no, these people mean business. They are willing to do this to us, all of us. So we better, as women especially, and to protect our children, and to protect the students, and allow our students to be able to learn what actual history is and be able to read the books that are important for everybody to be able to read, we have to sound these alarms and make sure that people understand that they do have a voice and they do have a path to stop this from happening here.
And they're always going to try. I think you guys said that about, you know, just voting or elections isn't going to make them just disappear.
No. And I do think that it's an important lesson, honestly, for this country and, you know, the voting public in this country, the electorate, that we understand that it's like, no, every election does matter. Your votes do count. And yeah, it is imperfect and it is slow and it is incremental democracy, but it's worth it. And it's worth getting out and fighting for.
And the alternative is really scary.
It is very scary. And, you know, and honestly, you guys, I mean, I said it, I think I sent you the email. I am, and I know Anita feels the same way. You guys, the work that you are doing, the fact that COVID happened, you know, and brought you to this point where you created this amazing organization, which, by the way, people can go to globalextremism.org and you can sign up for the newsletter and you can donate to the cause because it is an extremely important cause, and your mission and the work that you do is going to, I'm telling you right now, I say to this to Anita all the time, there are certain people that, like in the textbooks that are going to be written in the future, are going to be a part of American history. And I truly believe you guys are going to be in there. For the work that you do. I really mean it, because I'm telling you, so many people that I talk to now, like people that are way bigger names than, you know, Anita and I are, that I talk to and I say, you guys have to have, you know, Wendy and Heidi come on your show. And like John Fugelsang, I, you know, went to the Sexy Liberal show and I brought you guys up and he was like, oh yeah, I know them. And so like there are a lot of
they're going to be there in Chicago this weekend too.
Yeah, they're going to be in Chicago. I mean, but no, really, I think that there are going to be heroes that are going to be written about, and you guys are going to be two of the heroes that I talk about and that I think are going to be included.
Absolutely.
Because seriously, I mean, who would have thought? Would you guys have ever thought that this is what you would be doing?
Not
this exactly. I know you guys have been doing, you know, important work with, you know, the Southern Poverty Law Center, but like to be in this moment doing this work.
No, we didn't. Because we couldn't have imagined that we were going to find ourselves at this point in, you know, in history in this country.
Because you guys are a part of the resistance. You guys
could
are
any of you
the resistance.
Have imagined that we would elect Donald Trump as president of the United States? No, that's kind of what the catalyst was for a lot of us.
Yeah,
I think.
Of course it was. And what we experienced under that. But that was just such a kind thing to say, Karen. I mean, that was very kind. Thank you.
Yeah,
and I mean it. No, and I mean,
it's true.
You guys,
you will be. You were talking about it early on. That's why Karen brought you on the first time, because, you know, we felt like we were just, you know, yelling into a void. And then it was so, you know, just great to have some other people to talk to it about and kind of enlighten us some more about what was going on. And you guys,
well, and it really was. It was like a Google search, you know, and then you guys came up and I was like, oh, and then I was reading a little bit more about you and about the organization. I was like, okay, we have to see if, you know, I'm like, I'm going to send them an email and just see if they'll come on. And, you know.
Oh, she was so excited. She was so excited. She's like, oh, God, get on, come on.
Yeah, no, I mean, really, because it is something that, you know, it helps us to be informed, and we are all about putting out information conversationally, right? And that way then, you know, other people are hearing what you're saying, they're hearing what we're saying, and it's kind of like this amazing game of telephone where it, you know, if I tell 5 people about Project 2025 and the threat, then they're going to tell 5 people, and that's the way it happens. And then of course you have Taraji P. Henson, who announces it at the BET.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden everybody's talking about it. And you're like, what?
And now I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm kind of like, yeah.
We feel kind of proud about talking about it.
But I'm like, I've been saying this because like now I have like friends coming up to me and they're like, oh, did you hear about this Project 2025? I'm like,
yeah.
5 months ago, I told you about this. It's like, do you listen to anything I say?
Exactly.
Well, that's
I remember.
Listen, it is so important to talk about these issues. It's important to talk about them, in our communities, on the radio and podcasts, on our website, because it is, I mean, you just have to be persistent and you're going to break through. And I think collectively we have.
Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah. It takes, people.
I think
we threw in a pebble. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And I think, and that is why I have to say, I can't say enough. The newsletter is an absolute must. So everybody that's listening to this
get the newsletter,
globalextremism.org, sign up for the newsletter, donate to this amazing cause. And then you get updates and more information. And, it is such a wealth of knowledge that you impart on all of us and anybody that signs up for the newsletter. And it gives us a way to go and do our part. So I just cannot say enough about you guys. And thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You guys are so sweet. Thank you so much.
So on that note, we will let you guys get on with your day.
Go do your thing. Yeah.
But thank you again. And we definitely want to continue the conversation. So look forward to the next workshop. Unfortunately, I had a work conflict yesterday, but
that's
yeah. But I definitely want to get in. Are you recording them at all?
Is it online? Is it a workshop online? Is that what you're in?
We did a webinar and they're not online. We just completely forgot. I don't know how these things happen, but they did. So I'm so glad that you had us on so that we could talk again about these same issues so that we could have another opportunity. But everything that we talk about, we write about. So.
Okay. Excellent. So that's good. And then I wanted to tell you too, what's exciting. One of my friends, Debriana Mancini, she's an actress, and she and her friend Lisa, I can't remember her last name. Anyway, they're doing a cooks
movie.
They're doing. They have a Corona kitchen. They wrote a cookbook. And they're doing a special Project 2025 call for cooks. So for
really,
women cooks.
Wow!
So I'm going to get that information for you. And I don't know if you're cooks or bakers or whatever. I mean, I try, but
Heidi and I have a New Year's tradition about
what's that.
Well, we try to find the most unusual or even some of the hardest things to bake. And then we spend 3 days doing it.
And how does it come out?
We have had some great successes and then a couple of not so great things.
So much.
I tried
to build a gingerbread house and it was a total failure, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
I had a total failed jelly roll that I was trying to make into a Yule log. I had to start over. We've had a few that have kind of fallen in, but then we've made some things that were really spectacular. So it's a lot of fun.
You guys take a picture of it next time so we can see it.
Yeah.
Even if it fails.
Yeah, because even if it fails, it usually tastes okay. So
is that right?
I think I'm a much better cook than I am a baker, just because it's so much more precise. And
it really is. Baking is tough.
Also, one of my first endeavors was called for baking powder, and I think I used baking soda or vice versa, and it's very different. It's
very different. Very different.
Yeah. Yeah, baking is hard.
It is. Baking is hard. I'm a little challenged, but anyway. But thank you again for joining us, and
Yes, hopefully we can do this again in a couple
definitely.
months or so.
And I'll let you
Yeah.
know when I get more information about Debriana's thing, because I think
That's
it could be
that's
fun.
so interesting. That's such a wonderful thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will let you know.
Okay. So
Okay.
good to see y'all.
Good to see
Take
you.
Good
care.
to see you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Eye on her